that same kind of time frame, we started an R&D cycle on kind of in the background of like, okay, moving away from a 2011 magazine and moving away from the internal extractor, which is, the extraction. The second problem with the 2011 is how do we improve those?
Right.
And so we started playing around with a lot of stuff in like 2020.
Yeah.
We were like I was playing with a prototype that was like running on a SIG P320 mag just to see what would happen, little things like that. And we ultimately got to the point where we were pulling things from other companies' magazines that we liked and looking at that and be like, what actually works, what's not necessary, what could we do better? And we started playing with what's in our current V3 line, the CS and the C, that 9mm dedicated magazine. In that same time frame, we started looking at where does the round sit in the magazine when it's loaded in the gun, and how can we make the feeding more reliably aside from having a 9mm dedicated magazine, get that round up closer to the chamber, move it farther forward so that the round has less play. There's nowhere for the round to go except into the chamber, right? Gotcha. In a perfect world. At the same time frame, we started playing with external extractors and some other things. The problem with the internal extractor in the 1911 is you get somebody who's grown up on polymer guns. They don't know all the maintenance that old school 1911 guys were doing to keep 1911s running, and one of which is pulling that extractor out and cleaning the extractor tunnel out because it fills with carbon.
Right.
It fills with carbon, and then all that tension's out of the extractor, and it's not going to extract the round anymore, so it's going to be a constant double feed. So we had to fix that. So we did that with the external extractor. Another problem that was very common with people going from polymer to 2011s is they think you can just take it out of the box and run it bone dry and it'll be just fine. And you always hear the excuse, well, I have a Gen 2 Glock I haven't lubed in 5 years. And it's like, okay, well, one, maintain anything that you're carrying to protect yourself or others. I don't care what the platform is. Like, clean it, lube it, maintain it. But how do we make a 2011 less finicky when it's not lubed the way professional shooters were lubing 2011s back in the 80s and 90s, right?
What's the answer to that?
So we started playing around internal, putting lube rails inside the frame rails on the frame, things like that, the little pockets to hold lube in there and pockets for carbon to work itself out of.
Smart.
So the carbon's getting pushed into areas of the gun that aren't going to cause it to bind up, right? So throughout this R&D process, which was going on for a few years, we got to a point where one of the prototypes from the CS, I took out of a bag from the factory, and we put like 3,450 rounds through it in a day.
No problem.
It was lubed, lightly lubed, but we weren't adding lube for that entire fire cycle, and that was done in about 5 hours, give or take.
Wow.
Like heavy firing cycle, and it continued to run. And we're like, okay, we're finally on to something. We're getting this now where it's feeding reliably, it's extracting reliably, and it's running with the bare minimum amount of lube and no cleaning. So that was kind of our benchmark for where we wanted to get initially. And now everything we're doing is how do we make it better beyond that?
Gotcha.
How do we continue to make that gun more and more reliable and durable while not losing any of the shootability that the 2011 is known for?
Right. I mean, so are there 4 models or 5 models now?
Technically, there's 6 right now. We just launched that new C this week.
Okay.
Yeah.
6.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was the biggest thing that happened in this last year, just in terms of like improvement?
Really the development of that C. Everything we learned out of the last year's CS,
put it into that.
we rolled into the C, and then it's weird. You would think making a gun that's a 4-inch gun versus a 3.5 would be easier, but you learn so much when you actually build an engineering team to do things.
Got it.
So a lot of what STI did in the past, it was all gunsmiths. So like, you're a gunsmith, I'm a gunsmith, you're building your gun there, I'm building mine here.
They're not the same.
We could have very differing opinions on what we want. So we built out an entire engineering team, and we hired an extremely intelligent engineer named Paul that I actually tried to get like 3 years ago. It took me a couple of years to get him to come on board. Some other guys, one came from Honda. We're pulling people from all over, not just the gun industry, and we're letting them look at the problems and use all of modern technology, computer programming, CAD, SolidWorks, all this stuff to figure out the best way to solve a problem.
Yeah, with a totally different perspective, and that is we know nothing about guns. We know engineering.
Yeah.
We know physics. We know
exactly
metallurgy. We know all these things.
Yeah, we're like, here's the problem we're having. You tell me from your perspective what you think will correct it and why.
Yeah. How's that going?
It's going awesome.
Is it?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, can it be frustrating?
It is, but that's also like, those are the kind of problems I like to have because you're solving a complex puzzle.
I gotcha. Yeah.
So it kind of in my role now, I went from being that entry-level sales guy to an LE sales guy to LE and consumer sales. And now I've got two really great teams, one that does LE stuff, one that does consumer sales. And then I've got this little engineering group that I kind of manage, and I'm in charge of all the R&D and new product development.
Awesome.
And that's where my inner nerd comes out.
Yeah,
I'm like, okay,
fun.
let's build the perfect gun. We got a blank slate. What can we do with it?
How you feeling about that?
Good.
Yeah.
Really good. The next couple of years are going to be phenomenal for Staccato.
Oh, that's great.
Just always, and just the company mentality, I think, is the best part about working there. Like, this is a trickle down that comes from above Nate, our owner, just like his vision for the company and what we're doing. And then Nate's leadership and all of our other members of the team, like, we're all on board for the long haul. Mm-hmm. So it's really cool because at the beginning of this cycle, the whole industry was telling us we're going to fail.